So, yeah. If everyone could just make their way into these very nice metal polished seats. Yeah, but also, tomorrow there is an I Surf, I Vote event going on in the morning. An amazing organization. Started by my good friend, Mr. Billy Reinhardt. Angela Sun will be speaking at it. Because if we don't go vote, then what did we do? What did we do? We just talked about a bunch of stuff, which is valuable in itself. That has value. But you got to act on it. It's important. All right, everybody make their way to these wonderful seats. And again, sorry, and I hope you ate food. Yeah, it's 7:15. We got to get going. All right, we're gonna get started. Okay, we're gonna go. We have Michael Stewart from Sustainable Surf will be introducing our next panel. If you're not familiar with Sustainable Surf, they're doing some amazing things, and we're so pumped to have them. They've got some eco boards on display, and I'm gonna let our man Michael introduce the next panel.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Zach. Thanks, the Inertia team. Just guys, I know it's tough to come back from the food in the bar, but if we can, let's just give a round of applause so far. It's been an amazing time, and I just want to thank the team from the Inertia for putting this thing together, even though we did it on the one day I could have gone surfing. So, welcome. Come find your seats. Come on in. I'm Michael Stewart. It is true. I'm the co-founder of a nonprofit organization called Sustainable Surf. My cohort in arms, Kevin Wilden right there, is sitting on the seats, and I'm here to introduce the very next panel, which is called Innovation and Sustainability Advocates, and I have this just in case I forgot. And the first name on the list is actually Firewire CEO Mark Price, which is actually X'd out, and you guys are in for a real treat, because instead of Mark's rather technical and great breakdown of surfing business and things like that, we have Chris Grow, who's actually the global marketing manager, who's way more fun than Mark. So extremely excited to have Chris Grow. Chris says that he has probably one of the best jobs in surfing, which is actually building super rad surfboards that all of us love, that are designed to operate at the highest technical and environmental level. And I'll just sort of roll up the other ones, or are people going to come up stage? All right, next. We have Ryan Harris. Ryan Harris is, hand for Ryan Harris. Hometown hero. Ryan is a great friend of ours. He's a mad scientist. He's an artist. You can see his the resin work on his surfboards out here. Ryan is actually the founder and head shaper, bottle washer, cook and everything else for South Bay-based Earth Technologies. Earth Technologies was actually the very first surfboard company in the world to be building only eco-boards, so more sustainably ocean-focused boards. And that was actually back in, Ryan, was that 2011 probably? And Ryan became our very first eco-board project partner. And he's not at the scale of Firewire, which is one of our largest partners, but really ground zero for the work that we've been doing with sustainable surfboard certification through our eco-board project. You can see our deep blue wall over there and find out more info. It really did start here right in South Bay, LA, and we're incredibly proud to have him speaking and up here. And then last but not least is Dylan Hayden. Dylan, for the people that don't know, is the associate editor here at the Inertia, and he's got a particular talent, thank goodness for us, for focusing on environmental issues and really sort of digging behind the scenes for what all this means. So with that, let's get these guys up on stage, and thanks a whole lot.
If you wait till you have all the answers and you got it all figured out, or alternatively you try and play it too safe, it's not going to happen. You're just not going to make it. You have to really go for it. And I think with surfing, some of my greatest moments are when I actually went for it and made it. Now conversely, you can wipe out too. But I think that's what heightens the experience, both on the business side and through the sport itself.
Creating these eco boards, we actually create a lot of waste and trash and can't recycle that. And so it's about eliminating that waste or using that waste somehow so that it never goes into a landfill.
All right, hello everybody. My name is Dylan Hayden, as Michael said. I'm associate editor at the Inertia. And first and foremost, I just want to say I'm honored to be sitting on the stage with these two guys. Ryan, as Michael said, is the head guy at Earth Technologies, and Chris Groh, representing Firewire. Kind of last minute too. Mark was sick, so Chris is jumping in, and we appreciate his flexibility. But both Ryan and Firewire were early adopters of the idea that surfboards are made with toxic materials and that we can do better. And so for me, as an enthusiast, bottom line, it's amazing to be up here with these guys that are, changing the way that we think about our surfboards and just our equipment. So to start, Ryan, I'd love to start with you. As a longtime board builder, talking about that idea of toxicity of the craft, do you feel like there was a moment for you when you just flipped a switch, when all of a sudden it was like, I don't want to make surfboards in the way that they were made, or made previously?
I don't think we have mics, so we're just gonna pass the mic. Oh, there you go. It's a really long story, so I'll try and keep it short and sweet. But basically, I've been doing eco boards for almost 11 years, since before there was even a term coined eco boards. But as most shapers that have been doing it for decades, I started as a garage shaper with traditional materials that are toxic, and rewind about 10 years ago, I got this sap, this super sap resin. And it was in the very infancy of it. It was super yellow, looked like sap, and I was like, yeah, I'll try it. And none of my boards broke. And I'm a pretty big guy, and so all my boards used to break. And so the switch was, wow, well, I can save money, number one, but it was a switch for performance attributes. And eventually, and I'm talking about Ray Bonatau, who is the one of the founders of Entropy Resins. That was the initial catalyst that really started the whole EcoBoard movement, because they invented a bio-epoxy, and that didn't exist until that happened. And so that's really what happened, was the switch to that one material, and I never turned back. And I think part of it is, which I know you're going to ask me this, is where I'm actually from. I'm originally from Oregon, and Oregon's just beautiful. And growing up there, being surrounded by the mountains and the rivers and the lakes and stuff, I guess I was kind of born an environmentalist, and I didn't really know it until this switch happened. And so that's where a lot of the passion has come from, and really how it's happened.
Yeah. So Chris, before coming on board at Firewire, you became kind of internet famous with Shred Show. And I'm wondering, making that transition to Firewire, but even before that, during your time kind of looking at different surfboards and kind of talking about how they're made and, different features and innovation, was there a moment for you where it flipped and it was like, I need to think about how my surfboards are being made and why that's important?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I don't know how many of you have ever been introduced as being internet famous on YouTube, but it always feels suspiciously bizarre. I think the opportunity, and I like your story of how you got turned on to it. I think the opportunity for everyone is to have that switch hit a lot of different times at different intervals. So Chad Nelson, when Chad talks, I feel mobilized. That's one switch. There is a surf break by my home in San Diego that is the most fun wave you will ever surf twice a year because there's a seawall there. It's so freaking tide dependent that it's only in all its glory maybe twice a year. So I surf there, that's a switch. I was really fortunate to catch waves in Lemoore a few days ago. Being in that pool, thinking about the ways that that's going to bring attention to the ocean, that's a switch. I have this meditation every time that I take my garbage out from my home. I just have it in a garbage bag, walk out to the dumpster, and I just think, like, where's this going? And I just sort of ask the question, like, where's this going? I drop it in the dumpster, and I don't force myself to do anything about it. I just drop it, and I just sort of wonder. And that's just sort of a meditative practice that keeps me conscious and helps me keep the switch flipping. I don't think I had, like, a crux of a moment like Ryan did, but it's just constantly sort of happening at intervals. Speaking of being mobilized by Chad, I picked up one of the pins, so thank you.
Well, so I want to talk about the ways that both Ryan on your level and Firewire are changing the way that surfboards are being made. So for folks at home that don't know, Earth Technologies recently went zero waste earlier this year. As far as I know, can we say it's the world's first? It's the world's first glass shop to be zero waste. And actually, we have a photo of these mealworms. Can we get them on the screen? So these mealworms are integral to this process. And I would love for Ryan to explain first his inspiration and also what the heck these things are.
Another long answer. Okay, so one of my nicknames is the EcoBoard Guru because I've been doing this for a decade before it was cool and whatever. A couple years ago, I was just thinking, okay, well, we're making eco-boards. We're like the eco-board capital, but we're still creating a tremendous amount of waste. None of this is, it's kind of like the lesser of all evils, right? It's a bio-epoxy, but it's nothing you can eat. It's still ending up in the landfill. If you think about how a traditional surfboard is made, you've got fiberglass, dumpster, tape, dumpster, squeegees, gloves, excess resin. Literally everything you make that goes into the board is scrap and is going into the garbage. So I was like, oh, that's kind of a bummer. I mean, we can't recycle any of it, you know? You've got your regular collectibles, cans, bottles, cardboard, and that's it. But you can't recycle fiberglass. So there were some things already going on where we were upcycling fiberglass. There's a company called Push Fins where they use upcycled skateboard decks, like broken skateboard decks, and we send them all our fiberglass, and they make fins out of them. So that was maybe like a 2% reduction of our total waste. So the story goes, I got introduced to Eddie Garcia, whose company is the Living Earth Systems, which is an ecosystem with mealworms as like the muscle and some other critters in there. And basically, through a bunch of stuff that I didn't know about, I'm going to try and not get too technical here because honestly, I'm not the expert at it. But through bioremediation, these worms have a bacterial, something in their gut that literally turns something inorganic into organic material. And what we're talking about is styrofoam. And so, as an EcoBoard facility, we know we can't use traditional polyurethane foam, so we use EPS, which is styrofoam, which is recyclable. In other words, you can just keep it out of the landfill. It's not good, but you can keep it out of the landfill. But one of our biggest waste streams was the shaping dust, because you can't recycle that. the offcuts, the big blocks that come off the CNC or whatever, those can go back to the manufacturer and get recycled. And that's actually a program called Waste Away. It's by Sustainable Surf with Marco Foam that, Firewire is part of and lots of people are part of. So that was something that was already going on. But Eddie sent me this video, a time lapse of these worms eating a broken SUP inside out. And I thought it was CGI. I literally didn't know what I was looking at because it just didn't resonate. I had no clue. And so, yeah, fast forward to now, we figured out that would reduce about 35% of our waste. And so that was the light bulb moment when I figured, okay, well, if we can reduce all the shaping waste, what if I look at each room in the glassing factory and just do simple categorizing of the waste streams? And so you break everything down, and then we've got, I like to say our workhorse, our muscle is this heavy-duty shredder, and that actually shreds everything that's been categorized and densifies it down into a really small particle, which we can then upcycle, mix with new resin, put it into molds, and we can make products. And so we have zero waste, and we turn our waste streams into like fins or hand planes is what we're doing right now. Maybe we'll do some crazy stuff and do like skateboard decks and other stuff. But yeah, it's pretty cool. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. So yeah, you can applaud for that. Yeah, it's amazing. So Chris, I wanted to ask you, on a different scale, Firewire, is one of the largest producers of surfboards in the world. And from the early beginnings, there was a motivation to make surfboard manufacturing cleaner in some respects. What is Firewire doing at the moment? Kind of walk us through kind of the highest level of some of those initiatives.
In the interest of time, I won't list all of them. So we drive up here. We go to Coco's around the corner to get lunch. We came up here with our art director and our COO, and we sit down at Coco's. We're all around this table, and the waiter comes up, and he places straws on the table. And our COO texts, he's in here somewhere. He immediately and instinctively, because he has like 6 kids, he immediately grabs all the takes them all and hides them so no one can use a straw. Our CEO, Mark Price, he mandated that no one can have a trash can in their office. So I don't have a trash can. If I want to throw something away, I got to walk to the back of the building. It incentivizes you to not create trash. But then the other high-level stuff, we upcycle our EPS waste into garden pavers. Slater Designs traction is made using algae upcycled out of freshwater resources that are at risk of toxic algal bloom. If you guys haven't seen what's going on in Florida, Google algal bloom Florida. It's nuts. The Slater Designs leash is built out of Ulex, recycled urethane, upcycled plastic bottles. Every board we make is under the EcoBoard standard, similar to Ryan, same as Ryan. And it just goes on and on and on. It's a process. Yeah, go.
You guys were the first major label, top 10, whatever you want to call it, to use the bioepoxy, to use the stuff that I started with. And
yeah.
So
thanks for blazing that trail, because he had to do a lot of R&D and waste a lot of money and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So applaud you for that, for sure.
Well, and you've got the cardboard. There's zero plastic packaging in the boards.
Say that again?
The cardboard. Instead of bubble wrap, the boards are shipped.
Oh, well, we're experimenting with a lot of different ways to make packaging more sustainable. Yeah. How many of you have ever bought something on Amazon? Okay, that's every hand in here. Well, where did the box and the plastic, all that? Right. So we're constantly trying to figure that out. We have done that, and we're actually looking for more solutions to that, too.
No, Firewire has absolutely set the bar for how you can make EcoBoards on a huge scale.
We're going to hug before this is over.
Well, so that goes into a perfect conversation point that I wanted to bring up, and that's that because you guys are operating on such different scales, Ryan, for your part, it seems like you're able to take new technologies like, okay, yeah, I'll try that. Yeah, give me that. Yeah, like as as bio, as eco as you can get. The other day, when I visited you one time to do a little Facebook Live, you were using, what was it? Flaxseed, like inlays and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And that openness to all these new technologies, it seems like on some level, you're the guy that's like, all right, this works, this doesn't work, this works, this doesn't work. And then a big, company like FireWire can be like, all right, thanks for experimenting, Ryan. Thanks for figuring it out. We're going to scale that, and we're going to incorporate that into what we do. And then on the other side, FireWire is kind of doing things on a huge scale, and that's huge. It's crazy to think about. So, I'd love to get your guys' thoughts from both sides, because it seems like there's this symbiotic relationship between both in order to make change and change the way that we manufacture surfboards.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, FireWire was part of the inspiration for why we went zero waste in the first place. Because I was looking at, I think there was a video that came out of the surf ranch and the tiles around the surf ranch with the EPS melted down. And I was like, well, dude, they figured out a way to do that. That's awesome. And
you thought, I'm going to go find some worms.
Well, no, and Mark and I we're buds. We talk. He saw the same video I did, and so I know it's working. He's grinding the gears. He's trying to figure out a way.
Yeah, not much. It is he's built boards for us that are gorgeous with incredible. What kind of wooden veneers have you put on the decks?
Anything from sustainably sourced cedar to zebra wood, whatever I can get my hands on.
Everything. Kevin Wilden from Sustainable Surf is always showing up at our Carlsbad offices, look what Ryan did now. Look what Ryan did now. Look what Ryan did now. It's what, you're showing off now. So it's inspiring in both ways for sure. Absolutely.
I think one of the things, one of the pages I'm trying to take out of your book and sort out is how do you, we know we're really good at doing this EcoBoard thing, but how do you make it economically sustainable? And that's really, for the first 10 years, what I struggled with, and I'm kind of finally starting to get a lid on it.
Well, we can
solve
some problems over a Michelob later. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Gold.
One thing that I kind of want to hone in on too, that you kind of alluded to, Ryan, a little bit, is the idea that no matter how good you make a surfboard, it's still made out of toxic materials. They're better for the environment, but they're not good for the environment. And I think that distinction is key. In an interview we did a year or so ago, you said something to me like, an EcoBoard can be a PU surfboard that's lasted for 50 years that you've repaired over the course, So I think there's an element too that is worth discussing, the idea of consumption, right? And I think in so many cases, we live in a consumerist culture, and we, always want the newest model of the next surfboard or a huge quiver or whatever it is. And how do you, for both of you guys, how do you reconcile that idea that, having a whole quiver of surfboards, even if they're as eco as they can possibly be, maybe isn't as good as having two or one, or even repairing a PU board that's just sitting in your closet that, is super dinged up?
Another long-winded answer here. I try to not read all the comments on some of our posts, but there are internet trolls that they'll get to anybody. But one of that video I was showing you of that went nuts on the personal sci-fi I got that we made, zero waste and sustainably, all these bells and whistles and crazy eco stuff. I said, question mark, is this the most eco board out there? And somebody said, the most eco board is the one that's never made. Which, there's truth to that, but this is my livelihood here. So I'm doing my best. And, it's really about a change of attitude as well. Being eco is a mind state. It's not just, something you can measure. But yeah, there's another, guy about my age who's been shaping for a long time, who's a local legend, Tyler Kazikian, Tyler Surfboards. I would actually say that his traditionally toxic boards are super eco because they're so well built. They're lifers. They're going to outlast everybody that's purchased them for the most part. They're made so well. And then you look at the flip side of that coin, you've got these team guys, I think Kaloe went through 17 boards at the US Open a couple of years ago because they want them so light, which is just unfortunate, but I don't even know if I'm answering the question.
Well, let me chime in and try to wrap it up then. as you brought up that point about I mean, Cassie is around here somewhere. I'm sure that she has some Takayama logs that have lasted 10 or 15 years. So it's kind of like, what path are you going to take to try to get the outcome that you want? And we're all kind of reaching for the same outcomes, but the tactics and the strategies that get you there are different. And I mean, that's why it's fun having conversations with someone like Ryan.
Well, one thing that maybe it's pipe dream at this point, but what we're trying to do is track every board that we make. And if it breaks, bring it back. We want to keep the boards out of the landfill. Because, you know, boards are not indestructible. Even these lifers that we're talking about, they can suffer some sort of catastrophic failure, and they usually end up in the landfill. We'll bring them back. We've got a shredder. We'll make sure they don't end up in the landfill, any component of the board. But as you scale, it's harder to keep track of things. So that's something that I think as an industry, we could collectively work together, solve the problem.
All right, I think it's time to jump in and throw it back out to you guys now. I already see some hands going up. So let's jump back in here. It's a good conversation we're having right now, right?
Thanks for an excellent panel, guys. This is awesome. I'm really curious about performance attributes. I think I sense them on an eco board when I ride it, but maybe you can talk more about that. And also, for people that don't know, poly versus EPS, and how I don't think poly, there's a way, unless, like you said, the poly is you keep it for its whole life, that's can be, in a sense, an eco board. But explain, I guess, what actually is an eco board.
First and foremost, this has to be said about our surfboard manufacturing industry. In what sport would the material, would the equipment not evolve for 60, 70 years? Can you name one? A surfboard, a traditional surfboard, 90, 95% of boards that are out there are built out of stuff and the same technology that's been around for 60 to 70 years, which is not pushing the sport forward. It's actually pushing us farther back. The best thing that happened to the industry is when Clark Foam abruptly closed its doors, and all of a sudden people were scrambling. If you don't know, Clark Foam had a monopoly on the surfboard blanks, and these were the traditional PU blanks. And so what happened, companies popped up like Firewire that were epoxy brands, and they started pushing the tech, and the performance attributes skyrocketed. Epoxy and PU, now we're comparing apples to apples. We're talking about polyester resin, which is what traditional boards are made of, and then a bioepoxy, which is what Firewire boards are made out of, and my boards are made out of. And you get if we're comparing the two, you get better elongation, better flex, better performance attributes out of epoxy when compared to the traditional resin. And then when you compare the foam core, which is EPS, or polyurethane, which is also petroleum-based and toxic, you have a much lighter, more lively foam with epoxy boards. And so
we solve for that with a demo program. I mean, we have surfboard demos where you just come try the board and feel it, and you feel a difference, and that's it.
yeah.
It's just easier to have someone feel a difference than it is to explain to them why they should do something.
All that.
Yeah.
Everything.
Just our way of going about it.
Yeah, but there's a, you know, what would you say, Chris? Like, a lot of people just don't like epoxy. How many pros? Oh, dude, I hate epoxy. Well, I'm
We'll check it
I'm
out.
only using small waves. Well, then I go, okay, look at Firewire. Michelle Perez is in Chopu.
That's right.
Come on.
You don't even have to look to Chopu. You have to look in this room to Tom Carroll, who has been on a SKX by Tomo Surfboards recently and is ripping on it. So, I mean, there's your answer. Or Jesse Fain next to him is a great surfer. He's on a Moonbeam by Rob Machado. Look at Firewire Surfboards' Instagram story right now, and you will see Rob Machado surfing on an EPS epoxy board looking like he could collect scalps in competition. I mean, so there is your answer. If someone just wants to surf the same way they did 20 years ago or their grandfather did 30 years ago or whatever, hey, that's cool. I don't think either of us are here to change anyone's mind. It's like you have your tribe, and whoever wants to get in with it, you're good. And I think that's how we view it.
Anybody want to start to put odds on how long it takes Joel Turpel to make a collecting scalps reference in the next WSL broadcast? I think I saw some more hands up here. You mind passing this down, actually?
Okay, cool. Hi, guys. Thank you guys so much, first of all, for creating these technologies and using these technologies and pushing the surf industry to explore these new technologies. The mealworms thing is mind-blowing. I remember when I first saw that, it was like, psh. And then everything that Firewire's been doing, we're paying attention. Anybody who cares about the environment's paying attention, so thank you for that. My question is this something that can be kind of open source, these processes and these methods, where we're encouraging all of the shapers to start using these methods to kind of become as low waste as possible? Or is it, I mean, is it just like, okay, hey, we're also really trying to be eco and look at us because it's trendy right now? Or is it something that you really want to push everybody to
Oh, come
do?
on. No, we're not trying to be eco.
Yes.
I feel you. I'm just,
But
yeah.
that's a really good question,
It is
and
a
there's a
great
very good
question.
answer. You're basically talking about Kevin Wilden and Michael Stewart's job at Sustainable Surf.
Yep.
They'll go, I think someone said something about knocking on doors for politicians today. I mean, if you build surfboards, call Sustainable Surf, and yeah, it's all open source. And I like that you use that term. They'll work with you on whatever you want to work on. I mean, they helped us with the paving stone process, how we make the upcycled pavers. So that's the short answer, is call Sustainable Surf, because they're there. Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, it's look at our sport. We wouldn't have our sport without Mother Ocean. So we've got to do better. Every single surfer needs to do better. Every single glass shop needs to do better. And that's one of the reasons I didn't patent this whole zero waste manufacturing thing, is why can't I go train other glass shops how to do this?
Can they use the worms? You'll show them?
No.
He's not open source.
That's a conversation with Eddie, but that's something that's definitely out there, definitely something we can do. And that's what's actually really cool about that, is look at the oceans and what do you see floating on? You see plastic bottles and styrofoam. So now look outside of our little industry and you have a solution in these mealworms. It's a global solution to a huge problem.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Is that it? That's
Thank you, guys. Yeah. Cool. We'll just jump right into the next one then, too. Good job. That was awesome. All right. All right. Thanks a lot again for being at our first ever Evolve Summit. My name's Joe Carberry again. I've spoken a couple times tonight, filling in for people, but I manage the editorial process at the Inertia, and I'm lucky to do so. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to work with the people I get to work with. And I've been doing it for quite a long time, and with all sorts of publications, all sorts of athletes, and mainstream, outdoor surf. So I've gotten kind of the gamut. And what's funny is, like, if you cover the more mainstream athletes, like when they're ready to retire, there's like a confusion that goes on in their lives a little bit. Like, what am I doing? You know, what's going on? What's my next step? You know, you find that it's kind of a commonality. That's not like every mainstream athlete, but then you come to the surf and the outdoor worlds, and there's no question what you're doing for the rest of your life. I mean, when you have a pursuit that feeds your soul, you don't retire from that. You keep at it, because it creates a healthy environment for you. And I think what that means is these athletes in these worlds, they spend so much time doing these things that people can relate to and love, that they grow these really organic and authentic followings and these awesome platforms to speak from and to do things with. And that means that you can get a lot done, and people will follow you and understand what you're doing, and they'll relate with you, and they'll get with you. And so you have an amazing opportunity to create change. And I think that's what our next panel has been really good at doing. And they're actually going to speak on that, using your platform to create environmental change. Our first guest is Jeremy Jones, and many people know who Jeremy Jones is. He's probably the best big mountain snowboarder in the world. Yep. And an amazing human, great surfer too, all around good athlete. He has a movie coming out this fall, Ode to Mirror, as well, so excited to see that. Jeremy created Protect Our Winners in 2007. Something that struck me when I was talking to him earlier this year is, I think it was about a month ago, and he said, this isn't about powder days anymore. This is about humanity. climate change is about humanity, so it goes beyond just us. Our second guest is Greg Long, of course, one of the best big wave surfers in the world. When Greg won the Eddie, it was one of my favorite surf moments ever. And Greg has worked for environmental change on a number of fronts. He's working for Patagonia right now, Parlay for the Oceans, which works on the plastic problem we have in the oceans. Everybody knows that the plastic problem we're facing in the ocean is crazy right now. The moderator for this one is Forrest Shearer. Shearer, where are you, Forrest? Are you here? Yep. Forrest actually has knowledge on both sides of the sport. He's from Dana Point, so he knows both the surf and mountain worlds. He's going to be able to put these together really well for us. And he actually, we did a good interview with Forrest earlier in the winter, and he had this quote from Edward Abbey: "The idea of wilderness needs no defense. It only needs defenders." And these are all great defenders of the wilderness, so enjoy.
Thank you. What's up, guys? I love you all. Thank you so much for being here. This is really special and an honor.
Our hope really is to.
We're going to watch a little video real quick of Jeremy.
Life is the most exceptional miracle. You know, every aspect of it, just being able to wake up in the morning.
And Greg.
You know, the amazing planet that we live on that sustains life the way it does.
Yes, this is me up here, getting my surfy style shred on. And evolve. Right on, you guys. So this is environmental advocacy, and this is something that for me is the utmost important. I grew up in Southern California, and like many of you, ocean was my nature. That was my first introduction to wanting to protect the places I play and really thinking about the bigger picture of becoming a steward for the environment. So let's start with Jeremy, and just wanted to touch a little bit on Protect Our Winters, the nonprofit that Jeremy started. And what was the kind of aha moment for you that really was the deciding factor and a convincer for you to want to start POW?
Yeah, I guess, God, it goes, I guess, basically I make my living climbing up mountains, snowboarding down and I have to have a very intimate relationship with the snow. And I wouldn't be here if I didn't have that understanding of snow. And like as a surfer, like we live and breathe with that communion with snow or water. And I started seeing changes. And it was glaciers in Chamonix. It was a closed resort in northern Canada. And that was around 2003, where I was with a group of locals who were in their 30s, and they were telling me that we were walking up their resort. It was mid-February, and it was grass, and the resort was closed. And I'm like, why isn't it open anymore? And they said, we just don't get snow down here. I was like, wow, dude, you guys are not that old. What's going to happen? I started thinking 30 years down the line. Thought, I was like, we need to do something. I actually called a friend in the environmental space, said, hey, I want to take some money and put it towards something on climate change. He said, came back to me a week later and said, you know, you guys have nothing on that space. It's you as a group, as skiers and snowboarders that depend on snow, you need to be doing something on this. And I did not like that answer. I did not want to, my goal was not to start a nonprofit and go down that road. But as time went on, I'm like, man, this stuff is really changing. We're seeing it. And it took a couple of years to get it up and running. But in 10 years ago, we launched Protect Our Winters.
Awesome. So Greg, you've surfed all over the world, some of the biggest waves out there, and seen some pretty exotic locations. What has been the biggest eye-opener for you in terms of environmental degradation to our world's oceans?
Coming from the ocean, we're in a slightly different space than the mountains, where climate change isn't as apparent. And actually, I've heard people argue that climate change is going to be beneficial to the surfing industry in a lot of ways, and that we're going to get bigger storms, which we are seeing, but it's pretty selfish to look at it in that context. When you look at the catastrophic weather events that are happening across the globe, floods, fires, lack of snow, rainfall, droughts. So that's something that, but it is still very relevant when you are paying really close attention. I actually just went down to the beach that I learned to surf at, down at San Onofre, just south of it, called the Bluffs or Trails, to do a piece with Surfrider Foundation about climate change. And this beach that I grew up on surfing, I remember being 100, 150 yards, sand beach, walking out there, which is why my dad took me down there, is not there. That on the high tide, it literally, waterline comes up to the bluffs, and the bluffs are eroding more and more every single year. Our beaches in San Clemente, there's a regular sand replenishment project that's been going on for years, and the sand will not stay there. You go down there during the last full moon cycle, the high tides are going all the way up to the rocks that are creating the buffer to the train tracks. So you can say that this is just, you know, a cycle, but I don't believe so.
Yeah.
As you said, changes that, you know, in my 30 years of being down there, I've never seen. And then looking at it from an environmental standpoint, one of the biggest ones that is undeniable is the ocean plastic pollution problem.
Yes.
No matter where you go in the world, you will find plastic on the beach, whether it's microplastics or, you know, the most prominent places. I remember going to Bali my first time, 18 years old, and, you know, seeing that it was a problem, but I was admittedly very naive then, probably not recognizing it for the gravity in which it, the severity of it in which it already presented, but now it's out of control.
Right.
And so that's one that is just you know, undeniable. So
exactly, and now that you're working with companies to kind of think of new ideas to use plastic and materials and apparel and stuff like that, and when we think about it, you know, plastics, it derives from oil and coal, and that's kind of the bigger thing that we got to think about here is how do we kind of take this to the top and get to politics and all be on the same page here about moving towards renewables and really getting away from coal and oil. It's a big one. So Jeremy, you've been doing a lot of op-eds and going to DC quite a bit and really getting a hand on what's happening in DC. Did you ever think you would be going there as a snowboarder on the mountain? And I know that's where our home is and where we kind of feel the most protected, but that's a totally different world.
Well, they do call it Capitol Hill, and so
great point.
I've ridden some really, which some people would say crazy mountains out there, but nothing as tricky as Capitol Hill. A lot of crevasses.
Here, here.
If I knew, when we started Protect Our Winters, I knew right away, like in my head, the slogan was, together we can protect our winters. And I knew that I sure as heck wasn't, you know, gonna be able to just put this thing on my back and make it happen. So I just started, I had this motto of not being afraid to ask, and I'm like, either people rally around this, like I'm gonna basically put it out there and just try and bring people in. And for example, being a pro snowboarder, I really focused on not going after my sponsors, but going after different companies. We have Burton Snowboards, is Donna Carpenter, the CEO, is on our board. I really like, this is not a, I did not want to have it be a Jeremy Jones Foundation. So I went out to the best scientists I could find, and everyone kept saying yes. And so we, you know, are surrounded by some really good, the best of the best in this field. And when we started, it was all about water bottles and light bulbs and all stuff that is totally important. But pretty quickly, we realized that real change needs to happen with our elected officials. And I wish that wasn't the case. It's been the single biggest hurdle with climate change is that it is a political issue. We have these amazing solutions out there, but it's a political issue, and that's just the reality that we're in right now. And without major support at Capitol Hill and with the federal government, we cannot accelerate the change that we need to happen.
Yeah, very true. And I really want to, put an essence on, and this is really about us as athletes and as our personal choices and using our platforms. So this is a good one for both you guys, and it's how do we use our personal brand and our platform, because that's essential. And when did you start to see you could use your platform to push for change and environmental advocacy? I'm going to start with you, Greg.
I think that for me happened early on. I was fortunate. My father was a lifeguard, park ranger, so that kind of came with my territory growing up. As much as these waves, are here for you to recreate in, it's also your duty to protect it. So that kind of was instilled within me as a child. Which led me to starting to work at a younger age, with the environmental groups in the surfing space. But now more so than ever, with how connected we are in social media, and when you take a step back to look at it, that these brands, are grabbing on to the youth and to these individuals to sell a product. Yeah. And within that, there's a tremendous amount of space to be utilized and also selling a positive message for change. And that's something in the surf industry I personally feel has been significantly neglected, where it's always just been about, what's the next color trend, the next, fabric that we're going to be able to, push and up our profits. Whereas just as equally within that, you can also be sending out a message that, the next youth generation, wants to dress like that kid, wants to train like that kid, following them day in and day out on Instagram. They should also have a responsibility and be encouraged by these brands to be spreading that message of environmental awareness, consciousness, to be influencing that change as well. So for me, it happened at a young age, and now more so than ever when I actually realize, the leverage and the power that the surfing industry, the outdoor industry, has, and how many billions of people are tuning in and following on a regular basis. Right,
and that's something on a personal level and a business level that it's so important to call each other out these days on an environmental level and be like, we can make serious change here, and it's totally doable, and we need to hold these companies accountable for that. Jeremy, anything to mention?
Yeah, I mean, when I started Protect Our Winners, I kind of, being an athlete, you work with the magazines, the movie makers and everything, and it was before social media. I'm about 423 years old in pro snowboard years. And it's, and so I'm just like, I know I can get ads in the mags and da-da-da. I just kind of like connected all these dots. It's very no different than marketing a new film coming out or what have you. And it's like, let's market climate change and have people come together. And so that was the origins of it. But, you have this social media now, which is this incredible platform. Unfortunately, as Caroline so beautifully and horribly depicted the bad side of it, if you can get past the trolls, you can really rally people. And the thing with Protect Our Winners and what we have, and as we dig in and start rolling up our sleeves on, say, this coming election, and I'm in a lot of rooms with election specialists and stuff, and say it's definitely an older crowd. They are not on this platform of social media. That's where we come in. We live in that space, and we need. It's something like 12% of the people under 35 voted in the last election. That number needs to come up. where are those people at? They're on social media, and that's where we're talking to the people.
Right. Right on. So kind of just what you touched on a little bit about social, and I'd like to kind of talk about how POW has really used its marketing tactics and its social media in a huge way. They've basically took what Action Sports has been doing forever and kind of put that in the NGO realm of doing things totally differently, and that's something that I think POW has had a huge success with.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just kind of like, and I mean, I wish we'd had more success, but because that is really the front lines, is getting people to care about climate change, because it's not going away, and using the same, ideally inspiring to get people to act. And that's really what we do. And we just, again, it's kind of like in that language and that look and that, it's, that's the space that we're in. And we, when it's all working and we get everyone behind us, we can really move the needle. We had an interesting thing. We got a call from the previous administration from the White House. They came out with this deal, a clean power plant, and they were trying to generate energy on it, or generate support from it. And Protect Our Winters got behind it. We came up with this hashtag Act on Climate, and put our might through it. We reached out to all our athletes, and this was, before social media is as big as it now, but we got behind it, and the White House called us up and said, we cannot believe, we calculate your reach on that clean power plant at 12 million people.
Wow.
And it was way,
that's incredible.
So that's kind of the space that we're working in.
So Greg, in terms, this is kind of a good one for everyone, and what can the snow community learn from surfing, and how we're protecting our oceans, and what can the surf community learn from what Protect Our Winters has started, and the passion that our snow community has for advocacy and protecting these places that we love so much?
Well, I think Chad Nelson touched on it earlier, that when it comes to athlete engagement, the surf industry is really slow in getting those individuals to engage and really support the organizations that are out there on the front lines. And I actually just coordinating a meeting the other day between POW and Pure to really look at what Jeremy's done and how amazingly he has activated not just the snow world, but the whole outdoor industry. They've got trail runners, everybody supporting Protect Our Winters. So it's more of what we can learn from POW and follow their lead, because they are at the forefront of climate change, and we obviously have an array of amazing organizations. But when it comes to athlete activation, engagement, and the messaging out there, they are leading the way, undoubtedly.
That's really important for sure. The messaging is such a big one.
I just want to jump in real quick, because it was going to be the first thing I was going to say is the first check I ever wrote for the environment was the Surfrider Foundation.
Nice.
So I just, having you here, Chad, I just want to, it's a huge honor to be sharing a stage that, in a room with Surfrider Foundation. So thank you for that.
Surfriders started everything. I've been a big supporter and a fan forever. So thank you guys. So what if the outdoor community and the surf community joined forces? In terms of an economic powerhouse, I think we're unstoppable. What do you guys think?
I totally agree. The problem, and this is like a major problem, is why that it is this political issue. Because if you went around to the surf trade show or the snow trade show, who wants to do something on climate change? I mean, basically every company is going to raise their hand like, hell yeah, let's kick ass. And then they go and the marketing person's like, this is awesome. And they're like, hey, climate change, let's do something about it. And then all of a sudden it's just boom, 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 boom. You know, the trolls come out. They're very organized. There's not a lot of them, but they are gnarly. And they're like, oh my God, we got a bad comment. This is the end of the world. Someone doesn't like us. We got to run the other way. And it's just, you need to have some guts and some backbone and both. It's not just the surf, it's the snow. They're very vanilla and they're afraid to piss people off, and it's killing us.
All right, that's
so
action.
I'm going to leave you guys with the little calls to action real quick before we get into Q&A. Jeremy, do you want to mention with midterms and POW? Be great if we could all bust out our phones real quick.
Whoa, okay. All right, might have to.
We're doing this.
So, yeah, just protect our winners. This last election happened, and it was, you know, a brutal day. And we made a huge commitment and just are putting all our chips on the table. We went from a staff of 3 to 11. We have a POW Action Fund, and we are in this all hands on deck moment. So if you text and...
I have it right here, you guys.
Okay, go for it.
So we're going to text Vote POW to the number 52886, and that's going to be the take to pledge to vote for everyone. That's our most important tool right now coming into the midterms, is we need everyone to vote. And so that's Vote POW to 52886. And that'll get you registered and up to date on what's happening.
So 52886, Vote POW, one word.
Thank you. Any last words, Greg?
Yeah, that we didn't get to this place, these environmental challenges with, you know, truly grave consequences should we carry on the same path overnight. And it wasn't one industry, the surf industry. You know, I'm guilty. I've been consuming plastic my entire life. I drive a car. I fly on a plane. It's taken many years and billions of small actions by all of us. To get out of it, it's going to take the exact same. That there is no one single solution. It's not an eco surfboard. That's just one small solution in this world that we live in. When you look at climate change, the global plastic pollution problem, it can be very overwhelming when you look at it. You know, how are we ever going to change the world? It's not about changing the world, it's about changing ourselves and the world that we live in. And that's something that we can all easily do. It's going to take 1 billion small actions on every level. Your daily consumption habits, getting engaged within the elections, making that smarter choice of, you know, that piece of plastic that you may or may not, you know, need. That all of that adds up. And changing our own worlds, if we were only to adopt that as our motto, it would be so easy to change the world. And that's what it's going to take. And Zach, for bringing everybody here together to discuss this and how we can create more compassion and empathy and raise the overall consciousness and love within this community is a truly exceptional event. So while I'm up here and have the stage, to Inertia and everybody else, and for everybody being here and a part of this truly wonderful gathering.
Thanks, Inertia. Thank you, guys. So we're going to do some Q&A here.
We're actually not going to do some Q&A here this time, actually. We're going to move right on. Zach is going to jump back up on stage. Guys, give it up for these gentlemen right here.
Thank you, guys.
Oh my gosh, what legends. Thank you so much for being here, Greg. Thank you. Oh my gosh. And we got some upcycled trophies for you. Greg came here yesterday. He was getting barreled at Puerto Escondido and Giant Waves. I can't recall the name of the contest, but he left to come here to be here for this. So that in itself is pretty crazy. This next panel coming up, we're setting the stage with it with a short film that we produced. It's called Boycott the Gunston 500. It's about Tom Carroll, who's a two-time world champion, an amazing surfer that we've always had a ton of respect for, but this story somehow has kind of gone under the radar, that at the height of his career, right after he won his second world title, he decided to protest, to boycott pro surfing, to protest apartheid. That potentially could have cost him another world title. And that was at a time when surfers didn't do things like that. I mean, surfers still, some degree, have a bit of an apathetic association. So we found out about that story, and we were like, the level of respect just shot through the roof, because when athletes take stands that matter despite the risks, that's what this is all about. That's what everybody who's been on the stage has done to some degree. And we just want to do right by that story. And then we've got Sal Masakela coming up, who's done some amazing, and he's been in a powerful voice for action sports that's been able to articulate things that surfers have a hard time figuring out how to say. Has an amazing way with words, and he's also spoken very candidly about his experience being an African-American surfer. And we're going to show this film. It's called Boycott the Gunston 500, and Sal and Tom are going to have a conversation, and we hope you guys enjoy.
There was one person. Coming up to work, and he'd be kind of dodgy.
Hey, there we are. Do you want one, Tommy? See? Let's see. Let's try that. Hey, hey. Oh, come on, mate.
Come on, hey.
There we go. That's the first time that I've seen that. And I don't even know what to say.
Same here. I'm pretty just speechless.
First of all, thank you to the Inertia, Zach. I really, I just have an immense amount of respect for you. Ever since you were an intern at Surfer Magazine, and I met you at Surfer Pole, and I was like, this kid's turned on in a weird way that I'm not used to. I think he might end up doing some shit. And it's an honor. I can't believe that I'm sitting on this stage with you, who I had a poster of on my wall when I first moved to California and first started surfing, just because I just wanted to be as strong as you one day. But I didn't know what that strength truly meant. I'm going to read something that a little-known surfer who's starting to make, he has some potential to make some noise, said about you today. I asked him to describe you. And he said, a transformed, enlightened, caring individual who escaped the pitfalls of stardom and fleeting moments for a deep and meaningful connection to the world he loves.
Wow.
That was from the GOAT, Mr. Kelly Slater.
Thanks, Kelly.
It's interesting that we're having this conversation today. Let's just be frank. We are in a weird-ass time in this country. And there's this conversation happening, this idea that people with incredible natural ability and superhuman technique at the sports that they love should only shut up and play the sports that we clap for them to participate in. And I can't help but feel a mirroring in your story to where we sit at in America today, especially what we see going on with the NFL protests. And I thought to myself when I was watching this movie, if Twitter and Instagram and Facebook had existed
my God.
when you made this choice in 1985,
Boom.
What do you think it would have been?
I can't imagine, to be honest. It was enough to sort of make that decision and to do it. And then sort of, the one thing that's not highlighted in that story and what happened really for me was kind of after making the decision and is what happened to me when I sort of faced my own country and what happens in my own country and the sort of backwash from that decision for another country's situation. So I can't imagine, you know, the kind of on flow of having all that information sort of double and triple itself and exponentially just pop all at once. It might have been too overwhelming for me. At that time, I was only 24 years of age. So it was, you know, now I'm thinking about it, it's kind of overwhelming thinking of that.
What was it about South Africa that caused you to feel in this manner to the point where you couldn't no longer ignore yourself for the sake of any other kind of benefits?
Well, I just think it was, you know, I guess it's a combination of life, you know, living, you know, I came from a home where there was no such thing as kind of that kind of judgment, or those kind of actions towards another human being. So I'm lucky to live in that environment where my brain was mapped in that fashion. I also had a fair amount of loss early in life, and I lost my mother when I was 7, so I was very sensitive by nature. And I think as we grow older and you know, and I turned into this athlete, you know, and when you become an athlete, and I think also all those sensitivities are brought to the surface because you're working so hard to be good at something, and it's taking all your physical and mental effort, and then all of a sudden you become more sensitive to the world around me, you know. I just became a lot more sensitive to the world around me. And, you know, I did surf in South Africa and go there and travel there from 1981 till 1984, so that's, you know, 4 years of going there to compete and get this information in me that, wow, like, you know, to get to that point, to become a two-time world champion, to get platform to, well, I didn't even talk about platforms back then the way we do now, but it was set the stage for me to, you know, make that decision. But what was going on in those visits was a kind of certain disbelief within me, something deep down inside. It came across beautifully, Zach put that together, showed me exactly what I was like back then, and that was, and like I am today. It was deeply disturbing, some of the kinds of behaviour towards from one human being to the next, or one human being to the other, just solely through the colour of the skin. It just, for me, didn't make any sense whatsoever. It doesn't make any sense. You know, we're sitting here, look, what? You know, what is going on in this place for people to behave so cruelly towards each other? And it wasn't so much, and it set up a wild kind of feeling in the air, to be honest. Something that was probably, you know, it was generations old. You could feel it within every movement of, particularly the white. You know, I was talking about someone that I stayed with in that movie, that when we were going out, you know, going down to the surf really early in the morning, and the help was walking back up to the big apartments to help do their washing and cleaning and all the stuff, you know, and how he was swerving, kind of to, you know, that kind of behaviour blew me away. Like I was, you know, it brought it right back, and that was you know, that happened morning after morning when we were going surfing. I felt incredibly powerless to that at those times. And also there was one particular time, I'll never forget this one, it's been coming up for me in the lead up to coming here to talk about this, was there's a Barclays Bank in the centre of Durban where I used to go and cash my traveller's checks. Back then there was, you know, traveller's checks. And, and I walking into the bank, and I found myself, there's this African kid. He had something wrong with his leg and his arm, and he was on the step over here to the right. I'll never forget it. And as I was walking up, I gave him a couple of rand, you know, because he's begging. You know, he's got nothing else going on. He's just trying to get somewhere. Mate, he's trying to feed himself. He was. Anyway, and that was definitely a situation where I felt like I'd give something, and I was all of a sudden turned around and I heard this, "Oh, shame, look at the little Kaffir boy," you know? And there's this, I turned around and I saw, and all of a sudden I was sandwiched between this lady dripping with gold walking into the bank, and not really looking, but just walking. And I go back to that moment. I felt like I was really in between two incredible worlds, like really sandwiched. And it's still, that was the attitude that had to be kind of looked at. You know, from my point of view, I couldn't support it.
And for clarity, the word kafir would translate to nigger. And that was basically what she said fleetingly about that boy that you were dealing with.
Yeah, that's it. And that's pretty clear in my memory. Very clear in my memory.
My father was a political exile. He fled South Africa in 1959 because of apartheid. And he had to leave because he was either going to be thrown in jail or killed because he was an activist and he was making music with white musicians. And he didn't have a home for 30 years to continue to fight for apartheid. So if my dad wouldn't have left South Africa, I never would have ended up in California. I never would have ended up discovering surfing. And if it wasn't for that fight, I wouldn't be sitting here with you on this stage.
Wow.
And,
Awesome.
you know, to watch that movie and to sit here with you, you know, as I'm sitting here in his memory, I lost him 6 or 7 months ago. It's just, it's incredibly powerful, the choice that you made. My dad would just, I could see him right now being like, man, that Tommy, he's, what a guy, man.
Yeah.
It's a real one. It's a real one.
Thank you.
What was it like amongst your peers in that immediate moment? Because that shit must have been weird.
Shit was pretty weird. Well, there was some support. You know, Tom Curran supported it. Martin Potter supported it. Gary Elkton supported it. There was some other kind of mishaps, I guess, along the way. For me, you know, being 24, being a young Australian male particularly, I wasn't great at communication. I didn't understand how to vocalise what I was going to do before it. You know, I was like, well, you know, like that.
So you didn't tell the ASP or your sponsors beforehand?
I didn't tell anyone, you know, that I really needed to tell, and I really am very, very sorry to, you know, I feel like I really need to make amends with Sean Thompson around that. He was my surfing hero, and at that time he was sponsoring me through Instinct Clothing. And I really, if I was a lot more mature about myself and how I was carrying myself, I would have, you know, gone and talked to them really, and especially Sean directly. You know, so I'm really sorry about that and how that may have affected Sean. Still today, you know. But nevertheless, I felt that because it was such a surprise when I did it, it threw people out, and you know, I wouldn't recommend sort of doing it the way I did it. I definitely call upon people and support and actually do it right and do the steady kind of way to it. But that wasn't my style, I guess, back then.
Let me ask you this though. You, first of all, you lost your sponsorship from Instinct Clothing as a result of this.
That's it.
Which is, and you had just become world champion.
For the second time, yeah. So
right.
It was
yeah. Okay, I just won my second world championship. Let me set some shit on fire.
Boom.
But I would say that given the response of Ian Cairns, the ASP, the surf community, the media in general, do you think that there would have been a different outcome, that they would have been like, well, sure, Tom, let us help you make this crazy protest right now and suddenly be political. We've got your back.
Well, I think that was what was happening with surfing. They didn't feel that they were really a part of the world in a way. I think you know, we were trying to be a professional sport. We were trying to be professional athletes. I particularly was trying to follow the lead of people like Sean Thompson, Mark Richards, and Robert Bartholomew, and Dane Killoa, and all these guys. I was looking to be a professional athlete, you know, and actually bring it, you know, train, do all these things, you know, study how to be a professional in every way, shape, or form. Communication was one thing was lacking, but as far as my whole application to the sport, but the ASP and that organisation really was just, they just sent them into shock. They're going, oh my God, what is he saying? You know, and they couldn't get the fact that, you know, they're clinging on to any support they could with every event that they could have on tour, which meant include South Africa no matter what. And obviously, it came, you know, apartheid didn't come into that for them. Mm.
Which was interesting because at that time, in every other sport, athletes that did go to South Africa took heat for it.
Yes.
Surfing was the only sport where at the time you got heat for choosing not to go, like as far as the landscaper was concerned. But what was interesting is that first it was you, and then next year, Martin Potter, Tom Curran, and by 1989, 25 of the 30 surfers on tour decided not to compete in South Africa.
Brilliant. So good. See, I think I'm deeply moved by, people like Mahatma Gandhi and people who just do things by example, who do things in a peaceful way, who try to come to the middle road, and I think that by working through, doing the action, creating attraction in that way, we'll start to move in good ways, really good ways.
What was it like when you found out that Nelson Mandela wanted to talk to you after he got out of jail?
Well, I can tell you how that came about. I've got a friend who's actually white South African who moved to Australia, and he was running the Nelson Mandela Foundation actually in Australia and gaining support and so on. And anyway, he told me, this is in 2000, and this is some years after Mandela had taken over the leadership of South Africa. And he was well on his way. He was doing speaking engagements around the world. And he came to Sydney. He said, look, he's coming to Sydney, and, Nelson Mandela's coming to speak in Sydney. Would you like to come and, sit at one of the tables and listen? I said, for sure, put me on. I'm there. And, Bob Hawke, the Prime Minister, was in Parliament there. He was the Prime Minister when I made my decision. He supported me. Was going to the dinner as well, and we listened to Nelson Mandela speak. It was beautiful. It was, he held the space incredibly, in an amazing aura. Very powerful person to be in the room with. Just through his own sacrifice, you can feel it. You can feel it coming off him. So it's hard to explain from this point, but when someone does that sort of thing, it's incredible. From a human point of view, is very powerful. And right after the dinner had finished, he stopped speaking. He was up on stage. Bob Hawke came over, because I was a little bit stunned. I was like, I was stunned. I didn't really sort of move to go and I better meet him. But Bob Hawke came over and go, you've got to meet him, And he's a real Australian. Bob Hawke's like, yeah, you've got to come over and speak to him, Come on, I'll introduce you to him. Anyway, Bob took me over there and over to the stage, and at the side of the stage, and we had a little three-way conversation, and it was just beautiful. And it was really to that point, I kind of held on really tightly to the decision I made, and some complexities in the back there still sitting there about, the people that I disturbed and so on. I don't know why, but this sort of stuff clings onto me. Or I cling onto it, I should say. And the one thing that Nelson turned to me after Bob told him all about my story and what I'd done and so on like that, and in a beautiful, eloquent way. Bob Hawke was a very intelligent man, knew how to talk and tell the story. And Nelson Mandela turned around to me and shook my hand and said, thank you. I needed all the support I could get at that time. I was in Robben Island. And when he did that, right now I can feel it. Because I did... It was the part of my human, and the reason why I made the decision, it wasn't really for him, it was for the whole of humanity. So but the way he said it, and with his way, and it just, it hit a really strong chord. It relaxed me. My whole body relaxed. And I don't know what that was, to be honest, but it was a really nice feeling of support, yeah.
Which is why I say to you, Tom Carroll, with all due respect, you don't look back and feel like you should have done anything different. Because if you had done it in any other way, it wouldn't have happened, and they wouldn't have listened. And you put yourself, you made a choice to have what you do and who you were be separate. And you decided to stand up and say, this is who I am, and I can't hide behind what I do. And there are so few people in that position, especially today, that are literally willing to risk it all to say what needs to be said for others. So let that shit go, man.
It's gone. It's gone. Yeah. Thanks, Sal.
Let's fast forward to today, the landscape of what professional athletes and professional surfing especially looks like. These athletes have very interesting deals now that are so much wrapped around the public image, which transfers on to these rectangles that everyone carries around in their pockets. And when they see something that, I don't like that, I don't like how that makes me feel, how that person feels, it makes me uncomfortable, ah! And people start screaming and tell, I used to respect you, and now that I know that this is how you think, I can't be a fan of you, etc., etc. I'm speaking from example, trust me. That for a lot of these kids, they are not willing or don't know how to take the chance to stand up and maybe speak for the things that they want to. And we, as a community with surfing, are very, very content to keep our heads in the sand because we live in this beautiful utopia of Stoke. And don't ruin the Stoke, bro, with that shit that's going on in the rest of the world, because that's not us. If you could give any sort of advice or mentorship, or if you were in that position today, what would you tell these athletes, these kids today?
Listen to your voice, your deep voice. You know, just get back down, maybe drop the phone a little bit. You know, and that's a huge ask. I know I get asked to drop the phone all the time by my partner, and it's tricky. We are caught in the rectangle, and it'd be a really bizarre view if you went back 20 years and you looked at what people are doing now with them. But for the young surfer today, those young athletes, listen, try to get down to that deeper, the conscience, you know, the conscience that we try to snuff out, that flicker, that flame, that says something and you go, oh no, you know, not that flicker again, because it's going to keep coming up. It doesn't go away. Something in us is just not going to go away until we act on it. So try to get back to that conscience. It's alive, it's inside you, it's connected to a power that's way bigger than us. So get to that conscience and let it burn, let it fire up and listen to it. Share it with someone you trust and get the knowledge going, get the action going.
On that note, all I can say is thank you, man. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for being you. You know, I thought you were the shit when you did that turnip pipe, but this is something else entirely. And
oh, yeah.
It lives on forever. And this is a story, as I believe that in the annals of history, when we talk about all the legendary moments, you know, whether it's Greg Knoll, the day that he walked away, or all of the big, massive moments, this is a moment that should be held up with the biggest within the history of our tradition and of this lifestyle. And I am just proud to know you and proud to stand on this stage. And on behalf of everybody here and the entire world, thank you, Tom Carroll.
Oh, I really appreciate it.
What do we do next, Dad?
Thank you.
Oh, we got gifts? What?
Made from upcycled resin.
No way. That's cool. Oh, sick, man.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, bud.
Thanks. Thank you. All right, that was something. This whole day has been kind of like a dream, to be honest. That anyone came, it was really cool. So set the bar low expectation-wise, but the things that people have been willing to share on the stage about what they're doing, we're just taking environmental stands, social stands, just doing things that we love and that matter beyond just enjoying the pleasure associated with surfing and snowboarding and climbing, which are so powerful and so important, but they don't exist in a vacuum, and that's what today is about. And our final speaker today is Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. We had the great, yeah, give it up. Well, when Congresswoman Gabbard's office confirmed that she was going to be here, I was like, oh my God, are you serious? That is crazy. But it's real, it happened, she's right here. But she's so graciously let us into her home, and while we were on the North Shore during the Triple Crown, we made a detour to the Congresswoman's house. Thank you for having us. And we shot a little piece, but you know, if you don't know who she's the first Hindu to ever serve in U.S. Congress. She's the youngest person at 21, I believe, to serve in Hawaii State Legislature. She's a veteran, and she's through and through an environmentalist, someone who cares about the oceans. She's a surfer. So the New Yorker did a very cool profile on her, and you humored us by paddling out. There are no waves. I shouldn't have said that. Now you'll notice it. But we have this little piece, and then we're gonna have the keynote speech for Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. Thank you so much for being here, our global advocate.
Somebody said to me once, I wish more people in Washington surfed, because then I think they'd have a very different perspective on life and on the work. Growing up in a beautiful place like Hawaii, growing up in the water, surfing. I talk about the aloha spirit everywhere I go. I'm Tulsi Gabbard, and I am privileged to represent Hawaii in Washington. This is my 5th year serving in the United States Congress. It's great to be home. My getting involved, quote unquote, in politics really came around through environmental issues. As a teenager, I created this little skit and this story called The Adventures of Water Woman, the 2-person play about Water Woman and Oily Al. I was Water Woman, naturally. But to do this in front of classrooms of kids, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th graders just sitting there and their eyes wide, and you can kind of see the light bulb going off in their minds as they connect basic important lessons that we were sharing with them with their lives at home. I was 21 years old. A lot of my friends and other people thought I was nuts for running for office at that time, but I felt really strongly about why. My first election, when everyone was saying there's no way you can win, even a lot of people who were friends of mine, I focused on the people of Hawaii, the people of the 2nd Congressional District, in listening to them and talking to them and really earning their trust. And it was a reminder, I think, to everyone, the power of people. After serving 1 term in the state legislature, I had enlisted in the Hawaii Army National Guard, learned very important lessons along the way. but one of them was a recognition of how few people in Washington, D.C., how few of our nation's leaders had ever served, first of all, but really how few truly understood the cost of war. It comes down to the commitment and focus on purpose and on being there, being in a position to be of service and to help positively impact people's lives. When people decide that they want change, that they want to move in a different direction, that they want to bring about a certain action, that is the single most powerful thing in our democracy. Never forget who you are and where you come from, and find that motivation that will push you to serve and to have a positive impact on those around you outside of yourself. You know, whether it is surfing or business or education or politics or, you know, whatever the profession or the career path or the choices that any of us makes, we have that opportunity to make a choice every day. I'm very stoked and very happy to represent the people of Hawaii. And I'm going to continue to do my best to try to serve them.
All right, Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard.
Aloha. It's working. Thank you. How do you follow Tom Carroll? Congratulations, Zach, and all of your team at the Inertia for pulling off such a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you all for showing up and for being here and participating in the conversation. I've been in his shoes in different ways where, you know, you do your best, you work hard, and then you literally just sit and hold your breath and hope that people come. We can't just talk to ourselves. You guys are the ones that make the difference, so thank you. I want to talk a little bit about aloha. How many of you have gone to Hawaii at some point? Most of you, right on. Aloha is something that you hear all the time in Hawaii. Greets you in the airport as soon as you land. You see it in movies, but very rarely do you hear about the true meaning of aloha and how we apply it in our lives. That it's so much more than hello and goodbye, and that when you greet someone in the native Hawaiian traditional sense, what you're really saying when you say aloha is, I come to you with an open heart. I'm coming to you with respect, with love, and with care, and with the recognition of our interconnectedness, a recognition of our responsibility to each other because of that interconnectedness, regardless of where we come from or what our beliefs may be about things, what country we're from, ethnicity, race, sexual orientation, all the things that can make us unique. We are all interconnected. That responsibility that we feel not only to each other, but to our home, to our planet. So we can say aloha to each other. We can feel aloha towards each other, and we can make that choice every single day to live aloha through our actions and the way that we go about our lives. And it's so perfect being able to sit here and hear from Tom Carroll himself and hear about his journey and how he has made that decision at critical points when it was deeply unpopular. But to me, he is that example of someone who embodies that aloha. Because that's what gives you courage. Sometimes people say, Tulsi, why do you talk about love all the time? Love is weak, love is for girls, this and that, whatever. Without recognizing that for Tom, it was love for others and care for others that drove him to take that action, that courageous action, that was not at that moment helpful for his career, but he knew it was the right thing to do. And that's where I see examples like his are so important for us to reflect on and to be inspired by during these challenging times that we have as we stand and walk through our own paths in our own lives, whatever that may be, and think about, what can I do? It's so easy to scroll through Twitter and turn on the news and complain and bemoan all of the things that are happening right now, both in this country and in the world. There are many, many challenges. It's harder for us to look in the mirror and say, how can I put this aloha into action? How can I bring this light and this love into a conversation, rather than adding layer upon layer of darkness and divisiveness and anger and hatred? If we want change, we collectively are the ones who will make it happen. That is the only way it will happen, is if we choose to do so. If we choose to do nothing, then what a disgrace that we are leaving behind for our kids, for the next generation. You heard Tom talk about how he was standing alone, and then the next year there was 5. And then the next year that multiplied and it multiplied and it multiplied. So while that singular action may be lonely at first, or it may seem lonely at first, you may not realize the ripple effects that that decision in that moment can have, both in your world, but extending beyond that. And that's really what happened with me. Growing up in Hawaii, we grew up outside. We grew up hiking. We grew up playing in the ocean. I first learned how to swim at Ala Moana Beach as a little kid. In Hawaii, understanding that environmentalism wasn't just a fancy word. It wasn't like a political thing about what bills you're going to support or what you're going to advocate for. It was a way of life. How could you not fight to protect our oceans? How could you not fight to protect our air and our land? Because this was our home. So finding ways for me when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, to take action, not only to go and like, hey guys, let's go clean up the beach on the weekend, but then continue to see, okay, what more can I do? What more can I do? What more can I do? And the more I did that, the more I understood what I had been taught growing up, which is the most deeply rewarding feeling you can have in life is when you are living that aloha, when you are taking action not for yourself, but for others. And I saw that as we were doing beach cleanups, as we were going to elementary schools and teaching kids about what happens when you throw your empty soda can out the window of the car. What happens when you dump a bunch of pesticides in your garden? Real consequences to real everyday things that we have and how that impacts our home. I saw that out surfing, surfing next to a kid who was struggling to get a wave all morning, then finally say, hey, go, take my wave. And you see the joy in that kid's face, like raising his arms at the end of the wave. Like it was a better feeling than if I had caught the wave myself. The small things and the big things, thinking, how can we live aloha? As we look at our oceans, as we look at our environment around us, there is a lot more attention being paid now to how our everyday actions are impacting our environment. Every year, 8 million metric tons of plastic goes directly into our oceans. We've all seen the tragic images of the sea turtle with the plastic straw stuck in its nose, too many dolphins trapped in fishing nets and birds covered in plastic. In Hawaii, a recent study found that an average of 2,600 daily visitors to Hanauma Bay left behind 412 pounds of sunscreen. 412 pounds of sunscreen coming from 2,600 people. Think about the impact that that has on our marine life, on our coral reef. Hawaii recently was the first state in the country to pass a ban on 2 harmful chemicals found in everyday sunscreens. Very proud. And so now we're working on legislation in Congress to be able to do the same across the country. We're looking to see how we can support scientists and entrepreneurs and innovators who are coming up with alternatives to single-use plastics, finding creative ways to address these daily things in our lives that have become staples but have become so harmful. Last year, I introduced a bill called the Off Fossil Fuels Act, lays down a pathway to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels, end the billions of your taxpayer dollars that are going to these fossil fuel companies, and put us on a truly achievable path towards 100% renewable energy by 2035. This bill invests in our workforce. It invests in really truly creating a clean, green energy economy, one that is not poisoning our air, those workers who work in that industry, polluting our water, or eroding our land. Now, I got to tell you, when I first introduced the bill, there were people in both parties who said, God, Tulsi, that is way too aggressive. That is way too ambitious. Why don't you just take this baby step by baby step? Speaking of Nelson Mandela, and I love how Tom called him Nelson. Isn't that great? Speaking of Nelson Mandela, though, he said, it always seems impossible until it is done. And so since we introduced it, we've had over 400 groups, environmental organizations across this country add their names and their efforts to this legislation. Over 40 members of Congress have signed on as co-sponsors, and we're continuing to build that momentum and raise awareness about the need for urgent action now. The time for baby steps is long gone. I want to close with an experience that I had back in November of 2016, where I answered a call to action along with thousands of veterans from across the country. We all converged at Standing Rock in North Dakota on one very, very cold weekend to join the water protectors who were there to say that we cannot build this oil pipeline over this major water source, not only for the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, but the people in the surrounding communities in 4 states who would be impacted by it. I landed around 10 or 11 o'clock at night at the Bismarck Airport. If you've never been there, it is smaller than any airport we have in Hawaii. Maybe Lanai, comparable. But that airport was packed. As I walked through the baggage claim, it was packed with people of all walks of life, all different generations. I started talking story with them, and I met veterans who had served in Vietnam, who had served in the Gulf War, who had served in the post-9/11 wars. And what I heard from them was amazing, because these people were Democrats and Republicans and independents and libertarians, people of all religions and races, but there was a spark in their step and a sparkle in their eye that I found incredible. And I heard from a couple of them that night as we were waiting for our bags that this was the very first time that they felt that they had a higher purpose to serve and protect since they had worn the uniform. That veterans who have served our country and put their lives on the line for this country converged by the thousands to this tiny town in North Dakota to protect water. Because they understood that without water there is no life. People talk about jobs and these pipelines creating jobs that strengthen the economy and all this stuff, ignoring the fact that if you poison our water, you're poisoning our people, you're poisoning our land, and you are decimating our future. So to stand there during that weekend with all of these veterans from all parts of the country who understood that in the deepest way, and who in their own way took that aloha in action. They answered the call to duty. They borrowed money. They drove, carpooled. One guy walked from Kansas in the middle of winter to North Dakota because it's that important. It's that important that in our own way, every one of us find a way to choose to take action, to choose love in action. And so that's my hope for all of you, is that as you've heard tremendous leaders throughout the day today, inspiring leaders, people who have been successful in their own paths in many different industries, that you think about what you can do. I was 21 years old when I first ran for office in Hawaii, motivated by this desire to do more. And everyone around me said, don't do it. It's a waste of your time. But enough people believed and trusted in my purpose and why I wanted to serve them. And so I talk to young people all the time who say, well, I don't know what I can do. I'm just this, I'm a teenager, I'm a college student, or I'm 25, or I'm 35. One of my favorite quotes from Mahatma Gandhi is, a small body of determined spirits, fired by an unquenchable faith in their mission, can truly alter the course of history. The odds and the obstacles, more often than not, seem too great and against us, the people. You've got big money, you've got big special interests, you've got big power, big media, big everything. Change always happens when it's driven by the people. That's every one of us. So I hope that you feel inspired by the aloha spirit that exists within every one of us and makes this choice in your own life. Thank you so much. Aloha. Thank you. Aloha.
Wow. Well, that is the programming. Although we have Company of Thieves who's gonna come and rock for us. Thank you guys so much for being here. The first ever Evolve Summit. Hopefully, there's gonna be a lot more of them. Thank you to everyone. You gave your entire Saturday, and the waves are perfect. So that means a lot. Thank you to everyone who's been part of it. And gosh, and before you leave, well, first hang out and grab a drink, and let's all talk and hang for a bit, because that is still available. But make sure to grab one of the little gift bags before you take off, because there's a lot of cool stuff in there. And thank you all for coming out and being part of it. Much love.
You guys make fins? Yeah. You don't have that fin because I was one time in the what's it called? The trade show, the surf show, trade show.
Yeah, the boardroom show.
Yeah, the boardroom show.
Yeah.
Were you guys there before?
Yeah.
And are you guys the ones that you have the fins that they measure the temperature in the ocean? No.
No. Well, we were making.
They did electronics. Oh, but you go with them or not?
No.
Okay. So But I know you even met, but nice to meet you.
Yeah, likewise.
Cool, man.
Yeah,
Nice.
good vibes, man. Keep that up, you know? The world needs it right now. Miguel?
Yeah, Miguel.
Jamie, good to meet you, brother.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Ari.
Ari,
Nice
good to
to
meet
meet
you.
you.
Hell yeah, right on.
So where are you guys based?
San Diego.
Which part?
Well, from like Torrey Pines up to Carlsbad.
He lives in Cardiff, so maybe you guys have surfed.
Let's surf.
Yeah.
Let's go surf.
Cool, man. Yeah.
I surf, you know, like
I live in Cardiff.
I surf like between Seaside and Swamis a fair bit.
What's you say too?
Like I a fair bit between Seaside and Swamis, you know.
Maybe I saw you in the water. Probably. I'm like on that zone too. I live in Cardiff, so it's like Pipes. No, the big right next to Pipes. I don't remember the name, but I've been surfing for 3 years.
There's Barneys and Turtles and 85.
Turtles. It's just no, Turtles is southern. It's like Pipes and the next big south to Pipes.
Barneys. There's Traps and then Barneys and Turtles and 85s. And
so yeah,
Edge of the Hedge.
Yeah.
Hey, dude. I'm Jamie.
Ellie.
Nice to meet you.
What's the peculiarity of your fins?
What's the what?
What's the difference of your fins between like other brands?
Made significantly better, performed a bit more better, and really reasonable.
Okay, good. I will take a look.
Yeah, and our Apex Series fins are more environmentally friendly. Because I'm not going to get all the details right now.
Yeah, just I mean,
no, they're amazing. Check out the website, man. They're really, I'm really proud of what we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, man.
Yeah. Brother,
Okay.
do well.
See you later. Nice to meet you guys.
You guys travel safe. We'll surf. Let's pedal out.
Yeah, I will meet you out.
Awesome.
backstaking?
Yeah.
On the sides of the railroad tracks. In the morning, on my way to work, I see them loud lamps just glittering in the sunshine. Were I mercy, way to say thank you. Word I mercy, way to say anything. Oh, we need a close neck. There's nothing more helpless or hopeless than the birds of the city streets with the dirt on the heavy wings. In the evening, on my way to sleep, I hear them screaming out into a bitter melody. Oh, I think, would I mercy, way to say thank you. Would I mercy, way to say anything. For some things we testify in our love. For some things we magnify. Your boots are heavy with the undertow. In your hands, you're violent piano. See the sun coming through all the angles of all the wars we won, but we never let it go into the deepest truths of emotion, and on and on and on. Lost and found, and nothing's in the flowers. Broken truths up on the empty house. It lost and found, and nothing's in the flowers. Broken truths. Your work is wicked with efficiency, and for you pray, ha ha, you pirated emergency. Oh, oh, see the sun coming through all the angles of all the wars we won, but we never let it go into the deepest blues of the ocean, and on and on and on. Lost and found, and nothing's in the flowers. Broken truths up on the empty house. It's lost and found, and nothing's in the flowers. Broken truths. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Don't go. Go again, you say you want your freedom. like a heartbeat drives you mad. In the stillness of remembering what you had and what you lost and what you had, oh, and what you lost. Thunder only happens when it's raining, and players only love you when they're playing. I say women, they will come and they will go. When the rain washes you clean, you know. You know. Now here I go again. I see the crystal visions. I keep my visions to myself. It's only me who wants to wrap around your dreams. And have you any dreams you'd like to sell? Dreams of loneliness like a heartbeat drives you mad. In the stillness of remembering what you had and what you lost and what you had, oh, and what you lost. Yeah, thunder only happens when it's raining. Players only love you when they're playing. I say women, they will come and they will go. When the rain washes you clean, you know. When the rain washes you clean, you know. When the rain washes you clean, you know.
Thank you so much to the Inertia for inviting us to play tonight. Hey, yeah, we're Company of Thieves. This is super groovy. Thanks for having us. We have a few more for you.
Like the night we met, when you walked around my mind. You untied the strings I had knotted all my life. Question all of the things I believed in. Did I let you, or did I want you to? Never mind the rhyme or reason. Did I let you, or did I want you? I want a window. I need a window. I want a window. forget all the words that guide us here. We both lost our heads in a battle of our fears, leaving trails of lies and secrets. Did I let you, or did I want you to? Never mind the rhyme or reason. Did what I had to. I did what I had to. I want a window. I need a window. I want a window. I want to see it all through. This is all you get when you risk your life and you work so hard, and when you get back, it's all been taken. So forgive to get. When you risk your life and you work so hard, and when you get back, it's all been taken. Did I let you? Did I want you to? I want a window. I need a window. I want a window. I want a window. I wanna see it all through. I want a window. I need a window. I want a window. I wanna see it all. I gotta see it all. You're a treasure to me, to have, holding to you. Took all the love. You're a pleasure for me to let in that lead her high. No fury like when you took all the love, racing up the cold dead mountain, slipping into your old habits, keeping tabs on places I have been. Yeah, you took all the love, running through the city, shouting, trusting that one day you'll hear it. I'd rather die cutting off the maybe, baby. Yeah, you took all the love, hiding underneath the holders of the keys that came before you. How could just a fucking businessman really take all the love? Thank you. Episodes and parallels, and don't you want the invitation? Big bright accent, Curtis smile, Oscar Wilde confrontation. Yeah. Live like it's the style. We are all our own devil. We are all our own devil. And we make this world our hell. He said, we are all our own devil. We are all our own devil. But don't you know? We make this world. We make this world our hell. Porcelain teacups decorate tables and their conversation. Beauty pageants all the time. It's running out. Our time is running out. Come on, live it like it's the style. What's on your front porch? We are all our own devil. We are all our own devil. And we make this world our living hell. He said, we are all our own devil. We are all our own devil. Don't you know? We make this world. We make this world our hell. Time keeps on ticking away. Always running away. Always running from time. ticking away, always running away, always running in time. Yeah, yeah. Time keeps on ticking away, running away, always running from time. Our time keeps on ticking away, always running away. Man, I get caught running in time. Time is on your side. Stay cool. We are all our own devil. We are all our own devil. And we make this world our living hell. He said, yeah, we are all our own devil. We are all our own devil. Don't you know? We make this world, we make this world our hell. Oh no, don't make it our hell. Please, don't make it your hell. Oh no, don't make it your hell. Well, sometimes I go out by myself and I look across the water and I think of all the things what you're doing in my head. I paint a picture. Since I've come home, well, my body's been a mess, and I miss your ginger hair and the way you like to dress. Won't you come on over and stop making a fool out of me? Why don't you come on over, Valerie? Valerie, Valerie, ooh, Valerie. Did you have to go to jail? Put your house up for sale? Did you get a good lawyer? Man, I hope you didn't catch a tan. I hope you find the right man who will fix it for ya. And are you shopping anywhere? Change the color of your hair. Are you busy? And did you have to pay that fine? You were dodging all the time. Are you still dizzy? Since I come home, well, my body's been a mess, and I miss your ginger hair and the way you like to dress. Won't you come on over? Stop making a fool out of me. I paint a picture. 'Cause since I've come on home, well, my body has been a mess. And I miss your ginger hair and the way that you like to dress. Won't you come on over and stop making a fool out of me? Why don't you come on over, Valerie? Girl, Valerie. Ooh, All right, this is going to be our last tune for you this evening. Thanks so much for inviting us out to the Inertia. You guys rule. This is a beautiful event. Feel so honored to attend. Thank you. We love you. So because this is a unforgettable and uniquely Californian experience tonight, this is where a lot of beautiful things happen. A lot of progress gets stoked here with our pilot light. We're going to play this lovely tune to celebrate being in California. Thank you. Stars shining bright above you. Night breezes seem to whisper, I love you. Birds singing in the sycamore trees. Dream a little dream of me. Stars faded, but I linger on you. Still craving your kiss. I'm longing to linger till dawn here. Just saying these sweet dreams till sunbeams find you. Sweet dreams to leave your worries behind you. And in your dreams, whatever they be, dream a little dream of me. Stars fading, but I linger on, dear. Still craving your kiss. I'm longing to linger till dawn, dear. Just saying these sweet dreams till sunbeams find you. Sweet dreams to leave your worries, leave them behind you. And in your dreams, whatever they be, dream a little dream of